Here's a preview of what you'll hear on this episode of Beyond the Wheel.
That was the original design, was duck hunters and the stability and portability of it, thing like that. But it very quickly evolved into, hey, anybody who wants a portable boat, a boat in a bag that can do all these different things. So, natural progressions. But right now we're finding that RVers and campers are really probably our best customers.
Now enjoy the show.
You are listening to Beyond the Wheel, a podcast about the people and ideas that drive the RV community forward.
Looking to get out there and stay out there? Battleborn Batteries lithium-ion batteries are here to power your RV, marine, and off-grid adventures. Designed as an easy drop-in replacement for traditional lead-acid batteries, these reliable solutions have 2 to 3 times the power, charge 5 times faster, are a fifth of the weight, and last 10 times longer. Offered in a variety of models in unique sizes and shapes, ranging from 50 amp hour to a robust 270 amp hour, and backed by a 10-year warranty. Battleborn batteries are built to fit your needs and power your experiences. On the road, on the water, and off the grid, reliable power is here. Check them out at battlebornbatteries.com. Hey y'all, before we jump into this episode, we have a favor to ask. Could you take the time to leave us a review or rating on your favorite podcast platform? These ratings help the show get recognized and fall into a higher ranking for others to find us. Now on today's show. With space being such a restriction for most RVers, space-saving products are always welcomed. Today we are speaking with Tim Hardy, owner, founder of Greenfin Outdoors. Tim has created an inflatable boat with the unique figure 8 design for extra stability. As you will hear in this episode, Tim put a lot of time into the R&D of this boat, which is probably why it's so compact for storage, but also strong enough to attach a motor to it. Normally, when it comes to creating a product like this, I feel there is going to be compromises. But after chatting with Tim, I honestly can't find any at all, and it sounds like the Greenfin F-8R really can do it all. Take a listen and see what you think as we get this episode started.
Hi, Tim. Welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you started the company?
Hey, so first, thanks for having me on, Sean and Kenny. I really appreciate it. And let's get going. So I grew up in North Florida on the St. Johns River and, barefooted and always out on the water. So we fished, we hunted on the water, got our first motorboat. I was 10, my brother was 11. And we had a commercial fishing business, actually caught eels in the St. Johns River, supplying mostly the Japanese market for sushi. And that was back in the late 70s, so you can date me a little bit. But, from there, after going to the military, get back out, I had a career in the water with law enforcement with the Florida Marine Patrol down in Miami and the Florida Keys. So spent a lifetime on the water. And how I got into this was duck hunting. So we wanted a really stable boat. We had enough falls overboard and heard enough about falls overboard and, frigid waters and losing gear and just basically ruining your day. So we designed this inflatable boat to be extremely stable. And you can sort of see when you look at pictures of it that the center is brought in and narrowed. We call it the waist of the waist section, the midsection of it. And what that does is basically that figure 8 gives you those wings that resist submersion and the log roll effect you get with a typical watercraft that has parallel sides. You put weight on the watercraft that have parallel sides, you get that log roll effect. With ours, you simply don't. We've nearly eliminated that.
Okay. I was wondering about that and the shape of yours. Like when you see it, it definitely stands out. And I was wondering why not just make it that wide all the way around, but it's the actual shape that makes it stable like that.
Exactly, Kenny. So those are like wings, right? They work like wings, and some people that are looking at this at trade shows and exhibits that say, "Wow, this kind of look like pontoons." Is that the idea? And we say exactly. So when you have those wings or lobes, you might even call them, when you push down on those lobes, you literally have to submerge it. So you have a lot of resistance, and displacement of water because those lobes are full of air. So in order to roll and become unstable, you have to submerge and push all that air underwater.
Okay, so I'm guessing that's a patent then, Tim?
Yeah,
that
yeah.
shape?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got really excited about the design. Of course, you get excited, but you have to find out if there's anything else out there. And of course, you're not going to get a utility patent or a design patent. In our case, we got a utility patent, and it's quite broad because it's that figure eight shape with quite a bit of variation we still have to make some modifications to it. But yeah, so we searched everywhere and we found out it truly was unique. Nothing like that ever existed in the world. And of course, the patent examiners agreed with us that the utility of it, hence the utility patent, that it would likely provide the stability that we suggested, and it
Nice.
does, and it absolutely does.
The model that we're talking about it's an F-8R. Is that the model of the product?
That's correct. So we came up with the F8 for figure eight, which is what our patent is. If you were to Google figure eight raft, that's how we came up with the F8. Yeah, it wasn't associated with the aircraft; it was the figure eight, and then the R is basically a redesigned, and we might say redesigned 9.2 times. So we had basically version 9.2. So we built and actually had 5 prototypes built and tested, and each time we improved them, tested them, modified them. And we had 9.2 versions that we did with a computer, assisted design. That's where we get the F8R.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. We had the opportunity to see it down in Perry, Georgia, at the FMCA convention. And what's interesting is it's stable, very stable. It's roomy. It seems more roomy than like what you would traditionally think of an inflatable boat, and it can handle like things like a trolling motor or a small outboard maybe. While it can also do some minor whitewater rafting.
Yeah, so on the whitewater rafting, we hired some professional guides that work up in North Carolina and Tennessee. They do the Nantahala and the Ocoee, and they've been doing it for many years. They were great folks, and they tested it, and they said, "Hey, we'll do threes for you. It'll handle threes." And we said, "No, we don't want to rate it for threes. It's not built for whitewater rafting, but it's built for lazy rivers and class 1 and 2. So absolutely, for folks that are interested in our boat, have a great time, take it out. I would not encourage you to do threes in it unless you're professional, like a guide. But your average boater, you're gonna be good to go with class 1s and 2s, and those are a lot of fun. I mean, class 2 rapids, they're a lot of fun. As far as your first question or part of that, Sean, about the roominess that you found, and I appreciate you noting that when you guys were there. I actually missed you because my nephew told me about you folks, so I didn't get to talk with you while you were there, but we certainly appreciate a follow-up. But yeah, so on the roominess, what happens is, in order to create any reasonable amount of stability with an inflatable boat, you need fairly large tubes. So when we talk about tubes, we're talking about the main tubes, right? The main shape of it, not the floor, right? And you need a fairly large main tube to give you any kind of reasonable buoyancy. But with our figure eight design, when you decrease the size, the circumference or the diameter rather of those main tubes, you're bringing them in so that you have much more interior space. See, so for the same exterior space, think about this. So ours is built to fit in a standard pickup truck, fully inflated, a short bed, even 5.5 fits right in there, right? So even with a toolbox with a tailgate down. So if you figure that it's not quite 5 feet wide. Well, if you had an inflatable boat that wasn't designed like ours, that you wanted to fit inside a short bed truck and you wanted to have stability, you'd have to have huge tubes on it, about 17 inches in diameter, and you'd have very little room inside interior space because of the size of the main tubes.
Tim, you were saying that this is like a couple renditions down the road. Is that part of some of the changes? Did you start out with larger tubes and find out that you could make it smaller?
Actually, we started out with some smaller tubes. So one of my colleagues that I used to work with, he's out on the West Coast in Washington State, and he has an earlier version. The tubes are slightly smaller, and he loves it because he fishes by himself. He fishes in a lot of the ponds with trout in them that are stocked and so forth that allow trolling motor only or paddling, and so he loves it. But yes, the earlier version, one of them was actually smaller. We increased it to this size. If we went any bigger, you would, if you didn't get heavier, you would get a little heavier, but you would lose interior space. So we just really like this version.
Okay. And can you kind of share, if you're comfortable with sharing, like from the idea to the time that you're at this level now with the F-8R, about how much time was spent in like R&D?
Well, we're a little over 6 years with it, right? So we actually got our first shipment of these our inflatable boats in March of this year of 2023. So we did our first show in January of 2022 with the expectation that we would have them to deliver to customers, and they went over really well at an RV show in Atlanta. Unfortunately, with supply chain disruptions with COVID and so forth, we ended up not being able to get those in the time that we had expected. So we finally got them. So you could say that in that downtime, particularly in that last year, we made some really good innovations while we were waiting with the supply chain problems. So yeah, it's been a little over 6 years. I'd have to go back and look at the date of when we got our utility patent, but I think it was 2.5 years ago or more that we got the patent, and we had several versions before we actually even applied for the patent.
Yeah, I think that's something that people don't really think about, just how long some of this can take, especially when testing. I'm sure most people or a lot of people would just think, oh, you're just going to fill up a raft with air and you're good to go. But 6 years is a considerable amount of time for testing and planning.
Yeah, it's so good to hear that you're able to, I guess, see that and appreciate it, Kenny. Not something we would actually go out, but if we're asked about it, we'd love to tell about it. So, but we change things like the rocker, which is the degree that the bow raises up in the stern. Let's say for white water or for or for just any water conditions where it's going to get rough. And we think that the angle that we have on there is just right. It's not too aggressive, so that you don't lose floor space inside. And so it gives you enough flat area, but it's aggressive enough where you could go backwards if you had to in rapids. It lets the engine sit up a little higher, which is really nice. You have these small tubes. So if you look at the stern of it, the stern is raised, and that brings the engine up a little higher, which is nice. So when you have weight in the bottom, the engine's not sitting down next to the water. So it was just all of these things like testing. Anything we didn't like, we say, okay, we're going to improve this. We're going to fix it. The other thing we did is our floor, our drop stitch floor is double layer. So it's an inflatable drop stitch floor. It's double layer. Our last layer was single layer. It was a great floor, but it didn't get quite as rigid as this one. This one being double layer, it gets super, super rigid, especially for something that size, that length. But what happened was, in theory, it was theoretical that if you got that thing so rigid, it was straight like a board, it might actually pull down the rocker, meaning it might pull down the bow and stern's curvature that's built into the inflatable boat. It might just pull them flat, so you no longer have a raised bow or stern. So, we had the factory, hey, I want the rocker on the floor actually to raise the bow up and the stern to match the rocker on the boat. So when you blow that baby up, it's going to be rock solid and it's not going to pull anything down. You're not going to lose any of your rocker. We did things like, okay, so this isn't self-bailing. Our first model was self-bailing. And so that's nice when you're whitewater rafting, right? But what about when you're doing all these other versatile things like boating or running with an outboard? Well, first, you always have water in your boat. And secondly, you have drag when you have those holes in them, right? So that was our very first version. So after a lot of experimenting, testing, we actually put a bilge port, is what we call it. And our factory wanted to know, why do you want to put a V in the drop stitch floor? What's that for? And we said, well, we're building a unique way. It's going to be a bilge port. So in the very back of this, there's a V that's a perfect slot to fit a hand bilge pump or a small battery operated pump. And it'll literally suck the water like a straw pulling water out of a puddle, right? It'll just pull the water right out from below the drop stitch floor, anything above it or below it. So things like that, I had people over years, or we did, just get these out of there. We're tired of you guys working on them. It just goes on and on. And I'm like, look, we'll get it out when we really love it, when we have all these things and we think it's as close as to perfect as we can get it. And there's going to be things that we get from customers that are going to help us even improve it more. And we can't wait to get that feedback.
So when you had this idea, I'm sure you sketched some stuff out on paper, but then you must have to work with an engineer who can do like computer design type stuff, so you can, actually design prototypes that can be manufactured?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. And the company that we've been working with is Apex Engineering and Design in Gainesville, Georgia. Steve there, and he's a great guy. What's funny is you just don't Google raft engineers. You just
Yeah.
it's not something you find here, right? Particularly in the U.S. Or anywhere in the world. So there was a bit of a learning curve for him on in terms of all of the different complexities with building tubes that would expand and to what distance would they expand and under what pressure and things like that and the curves and the turns and all of those things. But he got quite good at it very, very quickly. So and he can build anything we need now on computer design. Yeah, so what we do is we send those and we can make adjustments. Of course, the adjustment is one thing in computer design. It's a whole nother thing when it's actually produced. Then that's going to require testing. Does it do what we hoped it would do? Does it perform the way we hoped it would?
And then I think a lot of people, well, myself included, like when you first hear that it's inflatable, Tim, how do you rate, I guess, the strength or how much weight can it hold? And can you just tell us a little bit about the materials that you guys use in the construction of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main tubes are 0.9 millimeter reinforced PVC. And if you went any heavier than that, we asked the factory, hey, build us one that's 1.2 millimeter, which is what our floor is. That's what the bottom is. And they said, look, you're really overkilling it. You got a really solid boat, quality product with this 0.9. If you go to 1.2 on something that's small, it's going to make it very heavy and very difficult to fold and to get in the bag. So we're 0.9 millimeter on the main tubes. The floor, which would be the bottom, let's call that the bottom of the boat, that's 1.2 millimeter. There's a 6-inch rubber rubbing strake that goes all the way around sort of the perimeter, the lower part of the main tubes, the lower part of the boat. It goes all the way around that whole perimeter, to help with rubbing and abrasions and things like that. And the floor, as we talked about, was a double layer drop stitch floor. And so we inflate that, recommended a 5.5 PSI. And 6.5 is the maximum. There is a pressure relief valve. If you go up to about 7, it'll trigger that, and that's just to keep you from overinflating it. But at 5.5, it's really, really solid floor. The perimeter has a grab rope all the way around it. We upgraded that from a polyester rope to a nylon, what they call a military grade rope. It's a very nice rope, and it's weaved in there permanently. It's got a D-ring on the front for an anchor line, a handle. It's got D-rings on the drop stitch floor to anchor down coolers or the burden buck seats that we really like, or to anchor down our inflatable seats. So our inflatable seats are double layered drop stitch as well, and they have a very nice backrest. And that backrest with our stainless steel end straps, you can adjust that backrest, and you're really comfortable. That was actually my mother's idea. So she's 79. She loves going out in these things because we have a bigger boat, and I never really understood why she was reluctant. I say, hey, Mom, let's go fishing. And she'd say, what are we going in? I said, well, we're going to take the Greenfin. And she goes, okay, I'll only get my stuff. And one day she fell down in it when we were fishing, and I was looking behind, and I felt the boat move. I looked down, and she looked at us. You okay, Mom? She goes, yeah, I'm fine. And she was laughing, and I realized that it was soft. So when she fell in, it was like falling in a bed. And I realized right then that that's probably why she really enjoyed it. So she likes sitting in that front seat with the nice backrest that she can lean against and just sort of nature watching and things like that when I run along with the little small 2.5 horse, gas motor. And so no trouble getting her in the thing when I load it up, or my dog.
Talking about things in the boat, what's the capacity of the boat?
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, so 530 pounds, right? That's person's cargo and gear. We're recommending like a single person, if you're over 260 or so, it will, but it's not going to give you the best performance. And I can tell you how we've tested it. So we've tested it with someone who's 255 and 2 sandbags that are 30 pounds sitting on them in the back with a gas motor, and me sitting in the front with a cooler, right? Is it safe? Yeah. Is it going to give you the best performance? Probably not. So, if you're 260, 270, it'll work for you. It'll work for you if you're 300, but there's probably some better boats out that are a little bigger that'll give you a better ride. But in terms of capacity with people and gear, 530. It's interesting. So some folks that bought one of our boats from us a couple of days ago in West Palm at the Outdoor Expo, they sent some photographs and they said, "Look, we took our time. We took it out of the bag. We checked everything. We checked it for leaks. We checked everything for quality. And even then, he said we were surprised that it only took 30 minutes to blow it up, including this all of the seats and going through the instruction manual. And that was using the foot pump. So they said. So what we did is we tested it and we put it in our swimming pool." So you could see these two young adults in the pool, and they're big guys, and they tried to sink it. They filled it up with water. So they were great photos they sent me. They leaned on the side of it and reached over, and the photos said that, hey, we think this is even more stable than a John boat, much bigger. So it was great feedback.
Yeah, there's a great video. I think it's on your website. I remember seeing it at the show, but where maybe it's you that there's a lab and a Labrador retriever in the water, and somebody bends over the side and picks up the dog and puts him in the boat, and the boat doesn't tilt at all, hardly.
Yeah, that's right. I'm glad you saw that, Sean. So yeah, that's my daughter Lily, and that's our Boykin Spaniel and hunting dog and house pet. But yeah, we actually did that picture. You can probably surmise that picture was done just to demonstrate the stability. We had my wife standing there, and I said, "Okay, Lily, lean as far as you can off this boat without falling in. I'll lean over, and then we'll call Coco, and of course she's going to swim out because she wants to get in it." So yeah, that's where that shot came from, and people do see that, like at the trade shows and stuff. I think it sort of registers. Yeah, I mean, you would intuit that, right? You lean over on a boat, a small boat, it's probably going to try to roll on you.
Yeah.
So there's enough space inside, it sounds like, Tim, that you can have two adults plus a cooler. Did I hear you right? That you said that you could bring a cooler along with you?
That's right. A lot of times I don't bring the inflatable seats that you see in some of the pictures and videos. Those are really for, let's say, a front passenger who wants to lean back and just relax and cruise along. Or if you're just paddling like a kayak, it's great to have two seats like that. That way you have a backrest, something to give you some support and something that gives you some pushback when you're paddling. Aside from that, if I'm just out fishing or boating, I may not bring the inflatable seats at all, or I may bring one of the larger ones to put behind sort of as a support to keep maybe the cooler from moving around. But a lot of times we'll bring either one of those bird and bucket seats, which are great. They're swivel seats. They open. They have dry storage in them. You can put a small cooler inside, or we'll just put like a small Yeti cooler or something like that in the front and sit on it. But yeah, plenty of room for two adults and a cooler.
Okay. And going quickly back to the strength of your boat, I guess that's why you're able to attach I guess they're called trolling motors.
Yeah, so it comes with a steel painted metal framed motor mount, and that motor mount just slides right in. So when the boat is half inflated, you slide that motor mount in the slots, and we reinforce those motor mount brackets, the stanchions, by the way. So they're far above and heavier supported than the standard ones that use that kind of motor mount. We actually put a double layer of 1.2 millimeter PVC over the top of those to reinforce them. And yeah, I mean, it does great with a 2.5 horse is my favorite 2.5 horse Suzuki. It's a 4-stroke or 4-cycle, that's called. So it requires no oil in the gas. It's water cooled. It's only 29 pounds, so it's super light. And then the other motor that we've tested with is a 3.5 horsepower Mercury. And that motor on the short shaft weighs about 41 pounds. My preference is the lighter Suzuki. It moves it along quite well.
Okay, that's how I would go. I have a bad back as it is. I think if I'm out on the water, I need a motor.
Right. What's nice is like you can go up some of these lazy rivers or streams, or even some light white water occasionally where you can go around it. Obviously, you don't want to go over rocks and things like that with a motor, but some of these in the South and particularly anywhere in the country, but you can go upstream with a gas motor, right? Lift it up and then sort of kayak and fish or sightsee on the way down real quiet. And that's awesome. Then you don't have to have a takeout boat or takeout vehicle at the other end, right? You can just motor upstream and then just relax and come back with the current. So we've done that a number of times, and it's great. That's what my mom likes to do.
Yeah, I live like a stone's throw away from the Shenandoah River up here in Virginia. You see people in bigger boats doing that. go upstream and then float back down. So yeah, it'd be nice it's a nice option in a boat that size, because like Kenny, I have a bad back and I'm getting old, and my wife likes to kayak, but I hate going kayaking because you're working so hard when you're going back
Sure,
upstream.
sure. Yeah, that's the way I usually roll. Yeah.
Yeah. So some of the features, what were some of the features that, like, as you were going through, you said we must have this feature before I'm ready to put it out to the market? And of those, were there any that were super challenging for your engineers to figure out how to make it work?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about the build sport, right, and how we solve the problem being able to get the water out. The other thing, that when you have a flat bottom boat, regardless of what kind it is, and you don't have an engine in the water, you're not going to track very well, right? Whereas you have, let's say, a canoe or a kayak that has a V in particular, right? It's gonna hold the line straighter and be less vulnerable to side currents or side winds. It'll just track better. That's why, you look at movies with a sailboat, they've got a rudder, right? Otherwise, that sail, because it has a keel on it to keep it from turning over, but the rudder allows it to go straight, right? Particularly
Mm.
when the wind is not in favor. So on the flat bottom boats, we came up with this option with building a rudder. And we actually use a kayak rudder, but we have a specially built and customized frame that the rudder's mounted on. And it just slides up on the motor mount, slides up on the two posts on the motor mount, and it goes in with two bungee balls. They hold it tight, but give it a little flexibility. If you bump something, pull it up and down with a string, just like a kayak rudder. That's exactly what it is. It's just modified with our own frame. It works great. It's still not going to track as well as a traditional kayak. It's still going to have more vulnerability to wind as a kayak. It will not be as fast as a kayak, but it'll do so much more the other things. It's just that's the trade-off. To be fair, that's the trade-off. In calm waters, it does great. Just paddling it like a kayak. When you get into the wind, you're gonna wish you had a motor on it if it's a wind that's not in your favor.
So Tim, we saw you at FMCA, and when Sean and I saw this, that it was inflatable, it's portable, we felt, well, that this is a natural fit for the RV market. Is that who you originally thought of for this boat? Who did you have in mind using an inflatable system like this?
Well, it all kind of came together at the same time when you realize what it could do. You're like, well, gee, campers can use this, duck hunters can use this, and that was the original design, was duck hunters and the stability and portability of a thing like that. But it very quickly evolved into, hey, anybody who wants a portable boat, a boat in a bag that can do all these different things. So natural progressions. But right now, we're finding that RVers and campers are really probably our best customers.
That makes sense. I mean, we're limited on space to be able to carry a solid structure or a fixed boat type of thing. But the fact that this all packs up, and when you do pack it up, Tim, how much space does it need deflated?
Yeah, so it comes in a carry bag that has wheels on it. You can cinch everything, and the whole thing fits in the carry bag. You're about 80 pounds when you have everything in there: paddle, the transom, the two sets of heavy duty seats, the floor, everything in there. You're about 80 pounds. But keep in mind that you're not going to necessarily carry all the double seats and all that. So the boat itself weighs 55 pounds roughly. The floor and the boat itself roughly 55 pounds, and so that basically translates into, I'll give you a comparison. We sold one to a gentleman who had a car top carrier at the Perry, Georgia RV show. And he asked me, he said, hey, I have a full car top carrier on my tag along. He said, do you think it'll fit in? And I said, yeah, probably will. He said, okay, I'll buy one. So, he hands us a card, he buys one. A couple of days later, he sends us a picture, and there's plenty of room in it when he has it folded up in that car top carrier. Matter of fact, he'd even bought a small cart to carry it on, a small dolly, a kayak dolly, and he had that in the Thule also along with the whole boat. So
Oh, wow.
I don't know if that gives you some perspective on size.
Yeah, it works for me.
It's oversized. If you're gonna ship it by air, which we've done, particularly when we go duck hunting out west, like in the Dakotas, it's going to be oversized. So it's bigger than a standard piece of luggage, but not a whole lot bigger than that.
Okay.
And then inflating it, you mentioned answering an earlier question that people used a foot pump to inflate it or a hand pump. Can you also use just like a battery operated or a 110-volt plug or pump to inflate this boat as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've tested a lot of different pumps over the years, and the one we like the best is Serene Life, and that's a lithium battery, rechargeable either by 110 or 12-volt car charger. The battery lasts a long time. We can get 3 or 4 full inflates and deflates out of one charge on our boat, and that's including all of the seats and accessories. It has a phone charger. You can charge your phone on that thing, and it has a light on it for emergency situations. But we just love it because the battery lasts a long time. It's lightweight, and the darn thing's turned out to be very durable. We got the first one about 3.5 years ago, and we tested all these different pumps, and I thought, well, this thing looks kind of cheap. I don't know that this is going to be the right one. And it's been on a lot of duck hunting trips and fishing trips and everything else. And that same one, we're using it at different trade shows, and we keep telling people, look, we really like this pump. We actually have that pump on our website, just a link to it through partnership with Amazon. It's a great pump, and it takes about 10 minutes. You're not going to save a lot of time, but what's nice about it is when you put the hose in there and lock it down, you can set your pounds per square inch, your pressure. So for the main tubes and the seats, you're going to be at about 2.5 psi is what we recommend. That's a nice fit. And you're going to go around 5.5 pounds on the floor. So on those two different settings, you just set it with a digital display, and when it reaches the proper pressure, it shuts off. So when it's doing the inflation, you can do other things. You might grab your life jackets, or you might reach over and grab your fishing pole, or you might put the paddle together. So it's not time that you're occupied totally with it. You put it in there and let it do its thing. The thing about it is it does go very quick with that. Each side's only going to take probably a minute or a minute and a half to do each side of the boat. It has 2 separate chambers. So you have a left chamber and a right chamber, which is for safety. And then, of course, you have the floor, the inflatable floor, which is another chamber, and then along with a seat. So there's an awful lot of buoyancy there if you do run into a problem.
And then deflating it, how long does that take when you're done for the day and want to put it back?
Yeah, that goes really quick. I haven't timed that, probably because you don't have time to time it. I mean, it goes fast, because when you're inflating it, after you get to about 1 pound of pressure, there's that particular pump that we were talking about, the Serene Life pump or a comparable one. It has a compressor in it, so it's a 2-stage pump. So after about 1 pound, that compressor kicks in, and it slows down because it's not putting the volume in there, but it's putting the pressure in there. But when you're deflating it, there's no need to have the the compression cycle. So when you unscrew the tube and you put it on the deflate side, it's fast. Yeah, it's real fast. And what's nice about it is it sucks it way down flat, makes it much easier to pack.
And then I have another random question here, but I just thought of it, so I figure I'll ask. You said the tubes are made of 0.9.
Right, so that's 0.9 millimeters. So yeah, if you would measure that out millimeters, that's the thickness of it. Yes.
And is that still patchable? Like if you got a small leak or something like that, could you patch that?
Yeah, it is. And so all of our boats come with a repair kit. You can patch them, and I'm going to say with your prep time and everything, taking your time, maybe 20 minutes. And the only thing that I've ever had to patch is one of our floors, actually 2 of our floors early on that weren't double layered. We had a leak in the seam, and I patched those seams. And there might have been one of our backrests that we got for duck hunting that had a leak in it at one point, but I've never punctured one. That's the interesting thing. I've never punctured one of these boats. You could puncture one, and we take care of them, but we duck hunt them, we take them out in the woods, we white water with them, and they're really durable. But to answer your question, they're not difficult to patch, and you can get some great videos off of YouTube of how to patch them. But yeah, when you patch it, it's permanent. It's probably stronger than it was before you patched it, because the thickness, you're going to have the thickness of the tube itself, and then you're going to have the thickness of the patch over the top of that with a very small hole, likely.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I have a random question for you too, Tim. When you're inflating these, do you always inflate to the same amount, or is there any times that you would maybe put less in for any type of different waves or scenarios, weather, or anything like that?
That's a great question, Kenny. It really is. So if it were, let's say it were 60 degrees out, and then I knew it was going to warm up, or I expected it was going to warm up to 90 or 95 degrees. Of course, when air heats, it expands, so you'll end up with more pressure. The easy part about that is if it starts feeling for some reason like it's way tighter than normal, you just take the cap off the inflation valves and just tap them. They're spring loaded. You push them in, and you're going to get that sound.
Easy.
Yeah. And so it's real easy to adjust it on the downward side. On the upward side, if you bring the small foot pump that comes with the boat, you can always add a little bit. In that situation, you might have it at 2.5 pounds, for example, when you launch and you're in whitewater, and all of a sudden the water temperature is 55 degrees, or colder if you're out fishing in the winter. Well, then you just add a little air with a foot pump. But you would notice it if it started making any sort of performance difference. Visually, you might not see it, but you might feel it leaning into it or something like that. But yeah, those are easy adjustments.
Okay, cool.
That's nice that you have it spring loaded, so you're not. You can somewhat control the amount of air you're letting out.
Yeah, and those are standard quality valves, and you're going to find those on your higher quality inflatable boats and paddle boards. Essentially, it's the common one for your stand-up paddle board.
Tim, what type of warranty does the F-8R come with?
So you're going to get a 2-year manufacturer warranty, and we're warrantying against any manufacturing defects, right? So if you tear a hole in it or something like that, or hit it with a nail, it's repairable, as we talked about, but that's not a manufacturer defect. But these boats are built well; they're built to last, and we stand behind them. So let's say there's a leak at a seam, like we had with one of our floors that we described. We're gonna repair or replace that and get another one to you, very quickly. Your boat is probably going to last you a whole lot longer than 2 years. I mean, 2 years is a good warranty, but it's probably going to last you a whole lot longer than that. We've got one that we've been using for 6 years, one of our earlier prototypes, and it's still in great shape. And it's been used a lot, more than the average consumer would use one, certainly, even if you were retired.
I had a question for you, Tim. I'm not sure if we mentioned it while we were interviewing you or if it was before we got on the interview, but you yourself are a veteran, and I believe that your brother is part of the company. He's a veteran. So in essence, this is a veteran-owned company.
Yeah, that's right, Kenny. Thanks for asking. Yeah, so I'm an Army vet. My no combat, just a veteran. My brother's an Air Force veteran, and my father is part owner in the company. He's an Army veteran. So yeah, that's correct. But thanks for asking that.
Yeah. Well, I know I am not a vet. I've never been in any type of military, but I always tell people I always try to support the vets because I appreciate what you guys do so much because I am not brave enough to do. I'm not even brave enough to enlist during non-war time. So I really always appreciate it. And if I see a company that is vet owned, I try to support them. We not too long ago we had a company on called Mind Over Land. I wear their hats. I wear their shirts. People come up to me and ask me about the company. They take photos of the company and stuff because I think it is important.
Hey, thanks for that, Kenny. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and combat or no combat, you were ready to go if they asked you. So
I think I'm still ready.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. But
Going back to marketing a little bit and who you thought this was going to be marketed for, and Sean and I, we thought right away, well, this is great for RVers and travelers. What type of marketing tools have you been using? Are you guys on social media, Instagram? Are you running ads on the radio? Is it just from the shows? What are you guys doing that you're finding that's working to get the word out?
yeah, so this is the first podcast, and this is the first sort of audio media. What would you say comparable to radio? So we're way behind on what we should be doing. Unfortunately, I'm sort of wearing a lot of hats right now. Not an excuse, but it's just something that we really lagged on. It's research, design, testing, manufacturing, trade shows. And it's like, I really need to step it up and get the stuff on Instagram. And my son, who also owns part of the company, and his name's Andrew, and he lives over in Wilmington. He keeps saying, look, go get me some good videos, get this and that. I'll put it on Instagram. And we're behind on that, Kenny, in fairness, but hopefully we'll have some stuff uploaded from this last show and some recent fishing trips and things like that. Let's get some photos from some of our customers and new boat owners and get them in there.
Okay. But you guys do have, I think, a YouTube channel, because I think I went to your YouTube channel and I was able to see a couple videos of of the F-8R in action. Does that sound right?
Yes, yes, there are a few videos on there. We need to get some updated ones, but that's right, there are. Thanks for looking at those. I hope you hit liked on them.
I did.
Okay, cool.
I know what I'm doing.
Okay, I figured you did. Thank you.
That actually brings me to another question: is if people are interested in taking a look at your boats and reading about them, what's the best place for them to go?
So our website, greenfinoutdoors.com, has some videos and has some photos and also some links. Again, it's greenfinoutdoors.com. And you can find the same thing or similar videos on YouTube, Greenfin Outdoors. We have a Facebook page. It's a little outdated, need to get it updated, but there are some things, some history and some details about the company and what we're producing on Facebook under Greenfin Outdoors.
And I think I got one more question for you, Tim. I know we're taking up a lot of your time here. So I know at the moment you have the F-8R. Do you have plans of launching, if you even want to say, I don't even know if you want to say, different size boats, or are you mainly sticking with the one size?
We've got some other things that we actually have prototypes on. Don't want to really get that out there now that we've done some testing on.
Okay.
But as far as that particular design, if someone could come up with a way, our patent will give us quite a bit of variation. As long as we keep that figure eight, we can make it longer, we can make it narrower, we can make it wider. But the trouble is, if you make it longer, you have to make it wider to maintain that figure eight shape. Draw one out and sort of try to stretch it out on paper, right? If you want to keep that the rigidity, if you want to keep the incredible stability, you're proportionally going to have to make everything bigger, right? And if you do that, you're going to make it heavier, and it's not going to be as compact, and it's not going to fit in the bed of a standard pickup fully inflated. So we would love to get ideas from folks out there about, hey, we think you can make this better. We think you could make it bigger. We're open to that, absolutely. And there may be enough demand where people want a bigger one, and they're not worried about it being heavier. If they got 2 or 3 people, they want to pick it up. I think it's on the table, but we don't have it out there yet.
Okay. All right. Well, Tim, I believe that's all of our questions, unless there's something that we might have missed or that you would like to add before we let you go.
No, look, I just wanted to thank you guys. It was a pleasure meeting you guys, and it was a pleasure doing the show with you. Thank you very much for it.
We hope you enjoyed this episode with Tim. It is always interesting to learn about the product development process and how much time it takes to bring something from idea to production. The boats really caught our eye when we saw them at the FMCA show this year. Make sure you go to their website, greenfinoutdoors.com, to learn more. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a rating on your podcast platform of choice. The more ratings we have, the more we are exposed to new listeners. We would really appreciate the support. You can also go to our website, beyondthewheelpodcast.com, to leave a comment. We enjoy hearing from the listeners. Thanks, everyone, and safe travels.
Looking to get out there and stay out there? Battleborn Batteries lithium-ion batteries are here to power your RV, marine, and off-grid adventures. Designed as an easy drop-in replacement for traditional lead-acid batteries, these reliable solutions have 2 to 3 times the power, charge 5 times faster, are a fifth of the weight, and last 10 times longer. Offered in a variety of models in unique sizes and shapes, ranging from 50 amp hour to a robust 270 amp hour, and backed by a 10-year warranty. Battleborn batteries are built to fit your needs and power your experiences. On the road, on the water, and off the grid, reliable power is here. Check them out at battlebornbatteries.com. With the complexity of all the systems in an RV, I always say it's not if something's going to break, but a matter of when is something going to break. That is why I think an extended warranty for RVs is so important. We first interviewed wholesale warranties back in 2019 and immediately became impressed with how their policies worked, such as you can take your RV to any licensed repair shop, including mobile repairs. They also have personalized service plans, making sure you are getting the right policy for your needs. And if you think your RV is too old for a policy, you might be surprised to hear that RVs up to 20 years old can still be approved for a policy. That is more age lenient than most RV parks I've stayed at. Go to wholesalewarranties.com/beyond the wheel or click the link down below in our show notes to get your free quote today.